Warning, this episode contains graphic language and the discussion of slavery, torture, and as always, teen angst. It is getting pretty dark here, pretty quick in Allegasia. Also, there will be spoilers for chapter 29 through 35 of Eragon, book 1 of the Inherent Cycle by Christopher Paolini. Listen at your own risk.
Is this a podcast, or is this just fantasy? We're just two nerds and we love our fantasy. So join us if you want to nerd out. Time to start the podcast and see. Anyway, here's the show.
Hello, readers. I'm Dane Patterson, the host who also feels a sense of foreboding and danger when I enter a church.
And I'm Jacqui Lanier, and is this a podcast or is this just fantasy? The podcast where the head injuries may be constant at this point, but at least the beer's good.
The beer's so good.
Yeah, that helps with the head injury, I'm sure.
It's always helpful. If you'd like to see one of our shows as well as listen to it, you can follow the link in the show notes to our YouTube channel. We also would love it if you'd please rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, and as always, you can visit us at isthisjustfantasypod.com. Our episode archive is there, and we also sell our merch, which I'm so excited. We just got some in the mail yesterday, our samples. They look super fucking cool.
They look cool.
I love it. So we have tumblers here on set right now. There's, your standard podcast merch, t-shirts, stickers, patches, hoodies. I don't know.
I really like the hoodie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The hoodie's going to
It
be
looks
cool.
cool. Yeah.
I'm excited. So we'll be probably wearing that
soon.
if you ever do watch that said YouTube channel.
You can see some of it?
Yeah, you could see some of it on us as models. And models is a description we're very comfortable with.
Is that something you want to stick with?
Yeah. Before we get into like the whirlwind of action and information that we're going to get in this episode section, a lot happening here. Lots of
It's a lot of stuff.
Downloads and fight scenes. I do want to take a quick look back at what we covered last time, kind of set us up, build us a foundation, if you will. So our small town boys finally make it to the big city of Tierm and do a brief off-Broadway stint as Evan and Neil to go incognito through the city. And this is on a whole new scale for Eragon. It's like a bustling seaside fortress. It doesn't seem, though, to have escaped the trouble that's engulfed the rest of the country. Still bandits, still horror. And I can't really understand why, because their king is just a totally cool murder wizard.
Jackie, hold on. The government, remember, cannot protect everyone. That's not what the government's for.
That's right. I always forget.
You're just
so
always
dumb.
trying to what are you doing?
I don't know. But Erebrom finally make it to Brom's old friend Jode's house, which is next door to a totally unimportant herbalist shop, a thing we won't be returning
It'll
to
never
later.
come back up, I don't think.
So Jode's hot but mean wife.
Extra spicy.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's Helen.
Hey, Helen.
She greets Erebrom at the door, and Brom and Jode finally get reunited. It's kind of nice. Jode seems very floored to see his old friend alive.
Well, yeah, it's been like 20 years, right?
Which is crazy. We did not know that. Why does somebody think the Old Town Storyteller's been dead for 20 years?
The more shocking thing is if I showed up after 20 years, you would be shocked if you thought I was dead. But if I looked exactly as I do now, 20 years from now,
That'd be a problem, yeah.
Yeah. You'd be like, you're a model.
Incredible callback. 20 out of 10. So I do like, though, that finally Eragon's getting a little bit more curiosity to figure out what is going on with Brom, because all of this does seem very curious.
Yeah, Bromwatch 2023 is
Yes.
still inactive. Bromwatch 2023.
That's you.
Yeah.
So they go to catch up privately at Jode's office in the city's fortress, because apparently at home with his wife is not privacy for Jode. Seems like some trouble in paradise there. But cue the information download alert. Jode gives us a ton here. Some to Eragon's face, while he's in the room, and some that Eragon magically eavesdrops on from the courtyard.
Finally, I'm proud of Eragon.
Yes, he's getting sneaky, getting crafty, getting curious. But after they swap stories and flesh out their shipping records heist plan, Erebrom and Jode prep for their big Ocean's 3 moment. And despite his business troubles, we find out Jode still is rich as hell, very important. So Eragon and Brom get to stay in style while they're in the city. And then Eragon gives us drops the big bomb that if he's going to help search the shipping records, he's going to need to, unfortunately, learn to read first.
Yeah.
And Brom whips up a quick, like, hooked on phonics curriculum to add to his already, like, rapidly growing
a reading boot
lesson
camp.
plan.
Yeah.
Yes. And he thinks that he's going to, no problem, teach Eragon how to read in a week. And
A week.
yes, dude, they're nothing if not ambitious and a touch unrealistic, which, you know, fantasy.
Right.
So on his first full day in the city, Eragon gets to know the neighbors, by which I mean he talks to a cat outside. And we get to meet Angela the herbalist and her werecat sidekick, Solumbum. Because Solumbum chose to talk to Eragon, Angela offers to read his fortune, which apparently is something she's only ever done twice before. And
Right.
only one person has taken her up on this.
Yeah.
A woman named Selena. Interesting, because Eragon has zero spidey senses for things that seem ominous. He's like, yeah, sure, cast your dragon knuckle bones to tell my fortune. We get our parting words here from Solumbum. He gives Eragon a very oddly specific way to like get
Yes.
himself out of a bind, basically. And I mean, I guess that's helpful. And typical Eragon has zero follow-up questions about this.
He's just like, thanks.
Yes, he just heads home to gear up for what's now going to be his like rise and grind lifestyle for his week in Tierm. So every day during this week, Eragon has reading lessons in the morning, sword fighting in front of a live studio audience after lunch, practicing magic in secret in the afternoon, scaling a cliff to visit Saphira every evening, and rolling back into the city underneath the like closing city gates just before sunset. And after truly 7 days, he can totally read.
Totally.
And he's ready to spend an entire night scouring the tomes of shipping records for the sweet Seether oil details. And Eragon catches a quick nap before his all-nighter. He has a crazy vivid dream about, what do you know, a hot lady crying in a cell. Seems normal. Definitely don't dig into that any further because Eragon certainly is not.
Nope.
So after waking, the sun's setting and it is on. Heist plot.
Let's do it.
It's time. Eragon, Brom, and Jode lie and bribe their way into the fortress after hours. They start combing all the shipping records. They're making a pretty comprehensive list when a strange-looking boy pops up in the window, tells them they're about to get caught, and Eragon realizes it's the werecat, Solumbum, having his like, I'm a real boy moment. Yes, and that guy's the best. What a bro.
Yeah,
He
seriously.
totally warns them off. They make it out of the room, lock the door behind them just as the guards are approaching, and the guards are like, hey, what the fuck are you doing in here? Is the door locked though?
Wiggle, wiggle.
Probably
Yeah.
fine.
That's probably nothing to see here.
Yeah, no other questions.
You guys shouldn't be here.
Yes. And they just totally get away cleaner than Clooney and Pitt and discover that there's only one place the Seether oil could possibly
Yeah.
be leading them, that the Razak could be hiding out to get all their shipments in, and that's going to be Dros Leona. It sounds like an ominous place, but Erebrom
It
are about
does.
to hit the road again. Are you ready?
These chapters, oh my God, I don't know if I'm ready. It's crazy. I have read all this before. We've talked about that a while ago. But it's been a while, and I get in. This is where I lock into this book. So I really liked all the other stuff. I was excited for all the other stuff to this point to happen. It was all really great. Now I feel like we're in it.
Yeah.
And we're off full steam ahead. I'm locked in.
Yes, I feel like the pace has been building and building
Yeah.
every section so far, every episode we've done, and now it's really fast paced. We have some like legit fight scenes in this section. Like we've training montaged it up a few times, and we're finally going to get some payoff for that, it feels like.
Yeah, the drama is brought up here.
Yeah.
There's kind of a horror element. Like, do the Razak creep you out at all? Because they
No,
creep me
I'd be
out.
best friends with those guys. Yeah, they're so creepy. They're written so creepy.
Yeah, and I have to say that for me, they're a top tier like fantasy add to creatures.
Okay.
In my like head of fantasy, like, you know, every author comes up with a few that are like originals.
Yes.
I like these. I even put them in my Pathfinder game.
Exclusive,
Yeah,
if you will.
I made them for my Pathfinder.
Wait,
game.
really?
Yeah, and I added them into my world because I think they're perfect.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I really like them. I think it's clear that Christopher Paolini was really into them. Speaking of like every author's got their one original like exclusive.
Yeah.
These are my guys. The way that they're described is always like very evocative, from their clothes to their smell to the way they talk. Like he's going all in on that vibe. So that is really fun. But enough of that. We have so much to get into in these chapters summaries, Dane. Kick us off. Let's do it.
Chapter 29, A Costly Mistake. This chapter starts out with Brom and Eragon leaving Tierm after giving Jode's wife some marital advice, which is
Yeah.
always what wives of, like friends of wives of friends.
Friends of husbands.
Friends of husbands. Thank you. I was like, I'm going to get trapped in this. We can break down the fantasy novel, but this gonna get stuck in. Love when you do that. I always leave like a dinner party and I'm like, and by the way,
hey Sarah, you've really been
hold on. I know we have a lot of summaries to cover, but doesn't this kind of remind you of like I Love You Man when Jason Segel does his like toast and he's like, pay it forward, be generous.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Talk about blowjobs. Yeah. Okay.
100%.
Yeah. Anyway, Eragon I'm sorry, what a tangent. Eragon fully loves flying on Saphira now and immediately goes out for a joyride as soon as they get out of here. Since they finally have a little alone time, Eragon finally asks who Brom is and what his deal is.
Yeah.
Yeah. He even points it out. It's so funny because Eragon is finally like putting things together that this weird guy like Brom is in Carvajal at all. Is super weird.
Yes.
Much less that he knows about dragons and magic. Eragon. About time. So here's what we learn. First, Brom says he won't share all of his secrets because not all of his secrets are his. And it would force Eragon to make some decisions. So that's ominous.
And actually, I think that's a little fairer than kind of what Brom's done in the past, which is like, sure, ask me anything.
Yeah.
And then after 5 questions, he's been like, no more for you. You don't deserve my secrets.
You've run out of time.
Yes, he's maybe he's bonded a little bit more with Eragon by this point, or something's going on where he's like, okay, I am still going to keep stuff from you, but like more to protect you than just because it's my right to keep shit to myself.
I'm doing it for you.
Yes. I mean, and I think he's probably right. He's clearly implicated in
a lot of stuff.
Big picture things that seem dangerous.
Well, he tells us some crazy stuff. He says there's a war going on, which sounds kind of like a Cold War to me. It's like a Cold War type thing.
Okay.
Between the Varden, the anti-imperial terrorist organization, and the Empire.
Right.
For the Varden, it would mean like an actual chance at fighting Galbatorix open and maybe possibly winning. Brom explains that Eragon is the first rider and is going to be hunted because of this by both parties. So they both want him. Brom works for the Varden. We learn that.
Yeah.
So Brom's a terrorist. and
that's not quite how I would put it, but
and he brought Saphira's egg to the Varden. So that sounds like a really exciting adventure. The way he explains it, Morzan, the last of the Forsworn, and the Razak worked to track Brom and Joe down.
It's crazy.
And they were after the thief that was working with them, that stole Saphira's egg. And then Brom, after he like got the egg, agreed to teach the next rider, and then went up and hid in Carvajal.
Crazy.
So that is who Brom killed. He killed Morzan, the first Forsworn. What? I mean, what the heck?
Yeah, I just like a mind kind of blown by Brom. Obviously, we talked about, reading this as kids, kind of knowing something was up with Brom.
Yeah, there's something going on.
And I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't like most competent badass that we've learned about to this point killed the most powerful of Galbatorix's like OG traders.
Like first one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just wild. Like good for Brom.
Good for Brom. We also get some information about the world here. We did not know to this point. All of the other Forsworn are dead for sure. I wasn't clear on. I mean, I got that implication, but we weren't clear on.
Well, all of it's so hush hush. They're just like not allowed to talk about any of this.
Yeah. We also learned the craziest information about why the Razak were in Carvajal at all. The elf in the prologue that we saw was apparently trying to send the egg to Brom, but that isn't why the Razak came. So they came because the Varden, who would have sent runners to Brom to let him know that the egg was stolen from that elf in the prologue, and I'm assuming asked for help to find the egg again.
Yeah.
Those Varden runners must have been captured, Brom thinks, by and the Razak came by the Empire, and then the Razak came for Brom, but instead found the egg and Eragon.
Okay.
So in a way, Eragon saved Brom's life, and Brom put Garrow's and Eragon's life in danger by existing.
Well, yeah, it's like he didn't do that.
Yeah.
He just happened to happen. We'll see.
Maybe.
But like he happens to live in Carvajal,
right.
And the Razak came just to find him.
Exactly.
Which
they weren't after the egg, is what he thinks.
Yeah, and kind of a smart plan on their part. Like if the egg is disappeared magically into truly thin air.
Yeah.
Like if your only lead is, hey, I bet this guy who we
this
do
guy
know where
popped
he
up.
is.
This guy popped up at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like we know where this guy is, and
let's go there.
Yes, we could follow his trail to whatever else is happening.
Yeah, so it's important to note here that Sloan is the one who ruined everything actually again. Because
shocker.
If he hadn't snitched, boom, no did Garrow. The only thing that bugs me here is why wouldn't they just kill Brom? You know, like why talk to Sloan at all? Why ask about Neg? Also, the rudder thing seems really convenient to me. Brom must have at least been reaching here because he doesn't know if any of this for sure. We'll get into the breakdown of this a little later.
Okay.
Brom also sent messages about Eragon to the Varden. But is going to let Eragon decide what he wants to do. So he's going to force him. He is also scared the Varden is too much for Eragon right now. He wants Eragon to be ready when he joins and to actually like choose to do that.
Okay.
He thinks politically it'd be a little overwhelming for Eragon right now. Galbatorix was in possession of 3 dragon eggs he captured during the last fight with the Riders until Brom and Jode stole Saphira's egg from the Empire. So Galbatorix has 2 still. So Varden, if they get Eragon, would only have like 1 to Galbatorix as 2.
Okay.
Okay. So Galbatorix is searching far and wide to find people now for his egg to hatch. And the Varden are working at assassinating those candidates we hear.
Not great.
Yeah. And they're also been working to try to like steal the other 2, which is like a suicide mission, but they keep trying it apparently.
Oh.
Yeah. Also Eragon's mom. Brom knew Eragon's mom.
What?
Yeah. What the heck? I still feel like the more we learn about Brom, the more I realize that like he knows everything, you know, because he says that Selena was dignified and full of pride, as well as generous to the poor.
Okay. And that's pretty much the most Eragon's ever known about his mom's like personality.
Right.
Which is a little weird because he lived with her brother his whole life, but
Yeah,
he doesn't seem to
Garrow-
know shit about her.
Yeah, Garrow like must have not talked about it.
Obviously not, because just everything in this book reinforces that Garrow was a weirdo.
Kind of a weird guy, yeah. Eragon drops the ball and doesn't push for more here. Brom is obviously still hiding stuff, but this seems fair. As they go about their day, Eragon is looking for tracks. Oh my God, I can't believe this happens. When he falls on a rock and breaks his wrist.
Classic, just Kevin being Kevin.
Yeah. And by the way, as this is happening, Urgles are after them.
Oh my God.
So he falls, he breaks his wrist. So it's like, run, boys, right, run. And this section reminds me of Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Because Paolini says that they're blowing on horns and they can hear them in the distance.
Yes.
So you know in like the very first Fellowship of the Rings,
Yes,
there's always like that.
towards the end there.
Yeah, doom, doom, doom. It kind of reminds me of that, which has always creeped me out.
Yeah. I love that as like a scene setting maneuver.
Like
Always
there's tension
fun.
immediately,
Yes.
right? They almost catch Brom when Eragon goes back to being dumb pretty much immediately. Pulls a bean farmer move here. Saphira flies down and then Eragon just lands in front of the Urgles. And his plan is to have a conversation, I think. And the Urgle says, and I'm quoting,
You think he came in to talk?
I don't know. I mean, why else? Well, here's what happens. The Urgles say to him, they describe their master here. Here's what they say. His name does not deserve to be given to one as low as yourself. He rules the sky and holds dominance over the earth.
Ick.
You are no more than a stray ant to him. Yet he has decreed that you shall be brought before him alive. Take heart that you have become worthy of such notice.
Yeah, this seems a little culty.
He's a little culty. These Urgles like their leader. I'm thinking the Shade, right? It's got to be the Shades,
Or
man.
Galbatorix. I mean, the skies, like dragons. How would a shade rule the skies, I guess?
But isn't the Urgles attacking the Empire? Like, aren't they running through? Isn't that what we saw in?
That's
is
true.
that Yazawak?
Yeah.
Right. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and we have seen the shade with some Urgles so far. It just,
Yeah, I don't know. So, Brom, I don't know. Okay, I think that might be true because if they worked for the Varden, wouldn't Brom be like, no, the Urgles are our dudes?
yeah, they've got us.
So maybe there's a third party here. I don't know. I don't know who they follow.
Mysteries.
Yeah, mysteries abound. Finally, Eragon just says like, no. He's like, nah. And just another one of his brilliant plans. He uses magic, get this, to push.
To kill him.
Yeah, all 12.
Not to kill him? Just push him?
Oh, no. He's just going to give him a little push.
A little shove.
So he pushes 12 Urgles. Remember, they're all like huge. It doesn't hurt them at all. Pushes them against trees. He passes out.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and I think more head trapped her. More head trauma. More head chapter. More head trauma. I think more head trauma.
I mean, he does nothing but get head trauma, so I would believe that. But that does take us to...
Sorry, that was a chapter.
That takes us to chapter 30, Vision of Perfection. We open on Eragon waking up alone in a cozy clearing, all tucked into his blankies, with his broken wrist splinted and a pot of stew on the fire. Like, not too bad for a guy who just did maybe the dumbest thing
So
in the
dumb.
book yet.
Yeah.
Brom, Saphira, and the horses are gone, but Eragon's going to figure that out later because he's dead tired and starving. So he's slowly recovering, it seems like, from one of his classic, I used too much magic comas. Yeah. and as he explores a little bit around this clearing, his first thought is to use a little pool of water to do the scrying spell that Brom specifically told him would overtax him at this point. Like, just nights ago, Brom was like, hey, this is the spell. Don't do it. You might die. And Brom's like, I almost died from magic just now. You know what I should do?
Probably do that thing I'm not supposed to.
That spell.
Yeah.
Come on, Kevin. You're better than this. But he actually is able to see Brom and Saphira. Like, it actually works. Classic. Just failing up. And once he's satisfied that Brom and Saphira are safe, he decides he wants to check on Roran, too. He's been thinking about it a lot. Roran's just sitting, like, in an unknown room on a, like, chair he can't see. So it's just like Roran floating. Floating in a void. And evidently, quote, Roran looked more like Garrow than ever, which is that kind of a burn?
So.
Sick burn, Eragon. You're being so stupid. Just don't make fun of the way that guy looks. But I thought, I also thought Roran was supposed to be the best looking one in the family.
Okay, well, that was before Eragon got hot, because now that Eragon's hot, he's like, look at that Garrow looking motherfucker. You know what I mean?
So rude. Just savage. But I guess that makes sense. So evidently, Roran's also safe, and Eragon moves right along to trying to scry and check on the other most important person in his life, which is the hot lady from his dream.
Okay, so wait, he's trying to he's trying to scry the dream girl?
That's him. That's our guy.
Right now?
Yes.
Okay.
He's not even sure if it's going to work or if she's real. He just has dreams. But he's shocked to actually see her. So he scries her. The spell works again.
All right.
He sees her in her cell, and he's even more shocked when she looks right at him. She makes eye contact with him in his scrying, which
Creeps
is
me
crazy.
out.
Yeah, that was a little bit of like a jump scare for me the first time I read this. Like, what do we have going on here? Are they connected in some way? Eragon doesn't get any time to think about this.
Yeah, like he wouldn't have just moved right along anyway, though.
I mean, yeah, that's true. But at least in this instance, he couldn't because Bromfira are back.
Oh, Bromfira!
Yeah, I'm going for that. Eragon learns that he's been asleep for 2 entire days in this clearing, which can't be good. And Brom and Saphira have been out trying to hunt down the rest of that band of Urgles. And murder all of them, naturally, because it's Saphira and she's wild. And can we talk about the most burning question I have about this whole scene, this whole chapter so far? Right. Drop the deets of that stew recipe, Brom. Like, I need to know. I need to know what is in that stew. Yes, apparently it's delicious, along with being good at literally everything else. Brom's crockpot game is strong. Like, he meal preps in the morning, sets up his stew pot, goes out, hunts Urgles all day, and has a steaming, and it's described as very delicious stew ready when he gets home. Like, that's time management.
That's a Renaissance man right there.
That's incredible. I would like to be that competent. TBD.
Yeah.
But not even a Michelin-starred meal could save Eragon from the absolute ass ripping that Brom gives him over trying to push the 12 grown Urgles away. He truly goes in on Eragon for having zero skills at judgment, discretion, common sense. And he also adds, since 3 of the Urgles still got away, their very powerful and dangerous leader is now guaranteed to know that Eragon exists, killed a bunch of whoever this leader is, killed a bunch of his servants, and generally was just an asshole to them.
Yeah, to like an unknown. Brom was also like, you don't even know who they are working for.
Yes, so we've definitely pissed off a big bad here. It's not great. Brom also says that from now on, he won't just teach Eragon how to use magic, but whether or not he should use magic in any given situation. And as they pack up and start heading for Dracleona, Brom spends the whole ride giving Eragon like judgment call brain teasers, which it sounds like everybody hates. Like everybody's just in a shitty mood. So we wrap up on the road again, but everybody's miserable. So where to next, Dane?
Okay, so chapter 31, Master of the Blade, can be summed up with one word.
Yes.
Montage.
Yes.
It's a montage area, baby.
Okay.
First, Brom and Eragon talk about Eragon's dream. Brom thinks he is scrying from his sleep.
Okay.
And that it should be impossible. he never should have been able to scry that woman that looked directly at him.
Yeah.
So as they muse over that, weeks pass as they travel towards Dros Leona. I gotta say, Erebrom sure do travel a lot in this book.
Yes.
As they do, Eragon is training all day and night. He's getting his brain teasers. Like, if there's a hot stove,
Do you touch it?
Yeah, exactly. Which leads to the name of this, the title of this chapter. Eragon trains his offhand and becomes just as good with his offhand as his main hand. That
Of
was
course he does, Dane.
very quick. It was very quick.
Well, you have to understand, it's important that if you are one of the few people in a universe who can use magic, is very proficient in that
Yes.
skill, could murder people, creatures, whatever, in an instant with a word,
Yes.
it's really important that you're also the best person in the world at stick, stick, poke, poke, sword fight. Right?
This is definitely a 15-year-old boy wrote this. Like, this is one of those things where you're absolutely right. It's cool as hell, Christopher Paolini. I'm not making fun of you. I just, okay. It's just very quick that he learns this.
Yes.
He also is finally able to beat Brahm.
Yeah.
Is that
Just outright
Is
beat
this
him.
this has to be Dragon Rider brain, okay? Because like they have all, like, he's also smarter. Like, they also get smarter. He's also able to master the blade because of this in both hands.
Yes. And master the blade to the extent that he can outright beat his mentor, who killed, again, the most powerful of Galbatorix's servants.
Morzan.
Yes.
He
That's
killed
crazy.
the Forsworn.
Yes.
So anyway, we wrap this chapter up with Brahm starting to give Eragon a brief overview of the type of combat magic fight.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some magic fight stuff going
I
on.
love magic fight, wizard's duel.
A wizard's duel, if you will.
Do they do the 3 paces back to back, turn around?
Yes.
Or
Snape shows up here.
Snape and Lockhart?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Because spells are instantaneous and the risk of a murder followed by accidental suicide is high, the rules for duels in this magic system are very specific.
Okay.
First, nobody can start using magic until one wizard can break into the other wizard's mind,
Okay.
which Gal was an expert at. That's why he's so dangerous.
Okay. So like if I think maybe Brahm says like Galbatorix was able to defeat the entire order of the Dragon Riders with only like a dozen companions.
Yeah, a baker's dozen.
A baker's dozen of traitors, betrayers, and murderers.
Or patriots. It depends on where you're looking at it. You know what I mean?
Well, I think I know where you're looking at it. But it sounds like from what Brahm says, he was only able to do that because like basically what his superpower is breaking down people's mental barriers.
It sounds like specifically when we learned about Gal and that he was really like powerful. What Brahm is specifically citing here now, a very powerful magician, specifically at mind breaking. You know what I mean? So Gal was extremely dangerous.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So super interesting end to this chapter. In typical Eragon fashion, he isn't that impressed with any of this or thinking about it. Or thinking about it much.
I mean, I think he's like interested in the whole magic duel aspect of it. It is funny when Brahm's like, didn't you ever wonder how Galbatorix was able to pull off that coup? And Eragon goes, no, never really considered it.
No.
I laughed aloud. I mean, yeah,
But I'm a blade master now.
Yeah, that's just like very classic our dude. And it does sound like, they have to have these very strict guardrails in place because it's very likely if 2 magicians just go like balls to the walls at each other, essentially, that they're going to overtax in
or both
like
die, right?
mere moments. Yeah. So maybe you'd kill your opponent, but you're guaranteed to die, essentially,
in
if
that
you
moment,
don't spend the time doing like the mental warfare first.
Because isn't it in the moment that they're going to kill you, you have just that 1 second to also kill them? Is that what I'm getting? Is that wrong?
Okay, so that's even with the guardrails.
Oh,
that's
wow.
still
Okay.
the problem. So the whole thing's kind of a mess. Eragon's like very scared about how this is going to work.
Okay.
And from what it sounds like, if you don't do the like break into somebody's mind before using magic, you just unleash all your power at once, or that's what you're tempted to do to overwhelm your opponent, and that's how you like murder suicide.
Gotcha.
But if you do the mental warfare first and you can gain access to your opponent's mind, then you have that split second. So after you gain access to the minds, then you can start using magic. Those are the rules.
Gotcha.
And once somebody goes to try a spell, you have a hot second of knowing what they're going to do to counteract it.
Gotcha. Okay, so if I break this down, you want to break into their mind, because if you don't do that, if your both walls are up and you don't know what's going on, you're both just going to cast stuff. You're basically just shooting at each other.
Yes.
Essentially. So then you're essentially looking at each other. One person breaks into the other person's mind.
Yeah.
Then they kill that person.
Yes.
Right?
Or just like have
an
a
arm
little
wrestle
yeah,
in the brain.
maybe. Yeah, kind of have time to react essentially.
Yeah.
And it still apparently goes poorly most of the time. Brom says it's usually over in like seconds.
So people are just
because of how hard it is. Yeah. Yes. It's super crazy. And I love at the end of this, Brom's like, you're obviously going to have to learn, but your skills, clearly you've proven that you're nowhere near competent enough to figure out how this works. Like, I'm gonna teach you, but not right now. And I think Brom's like last word is like, if you get into a wizard's duel, run. That's my advice to you.
Just get out of here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wild.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, but that takes us to chapter 32, the Mire of Drasleona.
The mire it is.
Yes, we open this chapter with Erebrom on like essentially what's a romantic getaway to Lake Leona.
Sounds beautiful.
They're nearing the city of Drasleona, which is on this lake, and they make their way around the giant body of water, grabbing lunch in like charming lakeside villages, like inns along the way. It sounds nice as hell. Like this is the Lake Como of Alagasia, maybe. But unfortunately, the biggest city on the lake, Drasleona, is a verifiable nightmare. So we don't quite get like Clooney, Italy vibes, sadly. We do get our first glimpses of the city here as Eragon and Brom approach. It's just a mess, like of winding, dirty streets and falling down buildings, dirty walls. And I'm so glad we've been traveling this entire section so far, just out on the road to get to this dump. I'm stoked.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
Yeah, but the most notable thing about Drasleona, unfortunately, again, is a massive, like mountain-sized rock. And it's this like big rock formation, natural seeming, but just like crazy looking, of like towers and spires. It's a few miles outside the city, and it's called Helgrind.
Okay.
And the fun-loving citizens of Drasleona took one look at Nightmare Mountain, essentially, and thought, we should build a scale model of that inside the city and use it as a cathedral for our super creepy religion. Wouldn't that be fun?
Fun.
Yes. So I know. Brom gives Eragon the rundown of this religion, and apparently they're like drinking blood and cutting off limbs for flesh offerings.
Gross.
And just as we're about to get into the city, Saphira presses Eragon to start really considering what they should do once the Razak are slain.
Yeah.
Which I love from her here, because like shit could easily hit the fan in Drasleona, she's saying, and they need to know pretty immediately if they want to go straight to the Varden or try to do something else here in the Empire. And sometimes I think she might be the only level-headed character we have.
Yeah, no, she totes is, but she's a woman, so no one's gonna listen to her.
Oh my God.
Shh, Saphira, the men are talking.
I deeply disdain you, Dane.
I'm kidding.
Yes. But our guys are on a mission, so they head into this like reeking, filthy, sad city. And even Brom, who killed the strongest of the Forsworn, again, wants to get the fuck off these streets as soon as possible. They find a really dumpy inn with bed bugs and bad food. But don't worry, the beer is excellent.
That sounds right.
Yes.
Some of the worst places I've been to, I've been like, you guys do drink some good stuff, though.
I mean, that's a fair enough point, I guess. So Eragon and Brom proceed to get like a little wasted. And we close the chapter with Eragon like already dreading the hangover he's going to have the next morning.
Oh, that's interesting, because chapter 33, Trail of Oil, starts with Brom and Eragon waking up with a hangover.
No. Who saw that coming?
Yeah.
It was me.
Brom makes him like hydrate. He gets some hair of the dog in him. They decide, and they decide pretty quickly they need to start asking discreet questions.
Okay.
Can't just be asking for the Razak in public. So they're gonna look for the soldiers or workmen who delivered the Seether oil from the ships. And Brom decides the city's too big. They'll have to split up. And he says, and I'm quoting here, "I'm trusting you not to do anything stupid."
Which, like, why would you be trusting him with that, Brom? That seems like a bad call on your part. Fool me once, Brom.
Yeah, I feel like he's getting like the brain teasers for only 2 weeks from Brom, and so like Brom has this like, he's like, I could trust him. He's got brain teasers now.
Oh, Brom, you can't. Spoiler alert.
He's gonna do something stupid. Learning fast and completely disregarding what he learns is kind of Eragon's whole shtick right now. So we'll see how that goes. Eragon goes to the city and asks lots of people about the oil, and actually does find a guy.
But also, like,
how do you break into this? How do you do this? Hey, guy. Name's Eragon.
It's like, have some chill, my guy. It's very, very typical. He never is cool. Remember when he very first tried to lie to Brom and he's like, oh, I met someone who said some stuff about dragons and now I have questions for no other reason than that.
And then
Brom
like a
was
week later.
Great. Here we go.
A week later, what was the name of the traitor again? And Eragon's like, what? Who?
A mess.
Anyway,
This guy.
Yeah, he actually does find a guy who delivered it. He gets some information about what warehouse it was taken to, and he meets up with Brom a little later, who spills some hot gossip that Gal is coming to Drasleona.
Oh, that's bad.
To straighten out the ruler of the city, Marcus Tabor.
That's bad.
Who seems to need a firm talking to by Gal, I guess. I don't know what he did, but
I feel like that guy's gonna get disappeared soon.
It seems like maybe that's probably the option. Anyway, Gal would be arriving soon, which is bad, but also it's good for them because Brom thinks the Rozak would most likely be around to get like Drasleona ready.
Okay.
For him, like for Gal. So I don't know. I don't know if that's true, but Eragon, I love this, recognizes that he should probably leave before Gal gets there. And he says, again, I'm quoting, he could probably tear me to pieces.
You think?
Brom is so amused by this. He actually kind of teases, saying, oh, very, very good. It's very hilarious.
Yeah.
Brom also knew about the warehouse. He too found that. And he was taken to the palace where he went as a bard and talked to the staff there. And learned all sorts of gossip.
Yeah, dude. Eragon's talked to exactly one person. And Brom's like, I also talked to that guy. I also circulated, met everyone in the I
know the schedule of the Lord. Yeah.
He's so competent.
Yeah, it's so great. Which gave him the information that the Seether oil is taken out of the city from the palace every month to be left outside of Helgrind on a full moon with 2 slaves and a month's worth of provisions. The slaves are never seen again. Spooky.
Yeah, not great.
So the Rozak for sure live there.
Okay.
Eragon's great idea is that Brom and him should trade spots with the slaves. And it's like, oh, Eragon, you sweet summer child.
Yes, we should pretend to be the people who get
Take
murked.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm presumably killed or sacrificed or eaten or something.
No way. They don't. Yeah. With the religion plus the,
creatures,
murder monsters.
Yeah. But Brom, for some reason, thinks this is a good idea. To me, it sounds like a D&D group idea, a plan. So anyway, they found the Rozak. Good job, boys. We did it.
Yes. And that takes us to chapter 34, Worshippers of Helgrind. Eragon wakes up alone in their room with a note from Brom to spend the day exploring the city, but to go armed and be cool. Stop asking people shit.
So he left lipstick on the mirror.
Yes, lipstick on the mirror. That's our Brom. And something Eragon is famously bad at is being chill. So I don't have high hopes for him here. But after shopping and a light lunch, Eragon stumbles on a slave auction happening over in a corner of the city. Not good. He's immediately enraged, almost to the point where he just unleashes his magic in a crowd full of people, which definitely would be a problem. But he's so overwhelmed by his instinct to free the slave on the block, which, of course...
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yes, I totally understand the instinct, but he does manage to keep his cool for once, listening to Brom, instead of outing himself in a way that's going to get both himself and the slave killed.
Yeah.
And he walks away and punches a wall.
Teen angst.
That's him, yes. Yeah. But he does decide that slavery is an irredeemable evil. He's ruminating on this. It really, really is bothering him. And he makes the leap that this is something Galbatorix is perpetuating as the king.
I will say this. I am starting to think that our divine right, supreme ruler, and just king of the empire, Galbatorix, might not be a nice guy.
Oh.
I'm starting to get that. I'm starting to get that impression.
That's an interesting turn for you. I
Yeah.
hope
I mean,
hope
slavery
you
is
really
bad,
think
gal.
about very, very, very bad. And what I do like about it here is that it seems to harden Eragon's resolve to use his powers to fight against the Empire. Like Saphir was talking about, what are we going to do once we're able to exact our revenge? And this is one of the things that helps Eragon say, oh, this is disgusting. And the guy who allows it in the bounds of his country should be deposed. Lost in all of these thoughts, Eragon accidentally wanders over to world's creepiest cathedral.
I'm starting to think that, like, I'm getting the sense that Eragon's subconscious is trying to kill him.
I mean, at this point, yeah, kind of. The description of the cathedral here is really, really good, though. Very evocative. Like, you're instantly transported to this dark, spooky setting full of, like, gargoyles and crumbling stone. And
It's so good.
I love it.
Yeah.
Eragon has the explicit thought that this whole building looks menacing, like it's, quote, waiting for its next victim to devour.
I feel that way about all churches, though, to be fair.
Yeah. I mean, naturally, hot on the heels of that thought, Eragon goes inside.
Oh, of course.
That's him. The cathedral's empty, silent, foreboding, like a crypt, as Eragon makes his way up to the altar, directly up to the front. And he's really feeling the weight of this place and the creepy people who practice religion here. And bam, the Razak are in the doorway.
Ugh.
Yeah. Blocking his exit. And the chase is on.
This creeped me out.
Yes,
Yeah.
super creepy. Eragon runs through the cathedral, like from room to room, through all the twisting back hallways, like blowing up locked doors, scaring the shit out of some of the priests. And he finally makes it to a courtyard with this giant retaining wall. He's struggling his way over the wall, like barely able to climb. This is a kid who climbs the creepy spine mountains on the regular, like
has been like walking around the entire country.
Yes, he's like really struggling to climb this giant wall, which just tells you, I think, how tall it is, not how incompetent Eragon is. That's how that sounds. But this wall's really tall. He finally like rolls his way over, and the Razak just leap it in a single bound.
Yeah, they jump. They're high.
Great. So this was, again, one of the things that just like creeped me out so much about them. And the chase continues like through the city, through this crowded market. Eragon hides under a wagon, like radioing Saphira to meet them outside the gates. Like,
Yes.
we need
pickup.
Yes, we need pickup ASAP. Saphira radios Brahm then to let him know that like everything's bad. And they meet back in the room, Eragon and Brahm, pack their shit, get the hell out of Dodge. They're frantically heading out the gate as the gate is like inching shut. A line of soldiers in front, like they're trying to lock down the city.
So tense.
I know. And our guys, for once again, expertly divide and conquer. Brahm uses magic to sweep the line of soldiers to the side. Eragon like uses his magic to push through the gate, and they make it. They make it out.
So cool.
It's amazing. So Saphira's waiting for them. She and Eragon continue the flight in flight. They take to the air, and Brahm and the
they
horses
continue the flight while they're flying?
Yeah, the
No
flight
way.
from the city.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I'm such a jerk.
Stain.
I'm such a
You're
jerk.
so good. You're the pun guy. Anyway, Brahm is riding the horses. They go well into the darkness outside the city. They finally make like a covert camp in the middle of the night, realizing like they must have been spotted by spies in the castle. That's how like the Razak were able to track them. And now that they've been discovered, they've maybe lost their chance at the Razak. But per usual, that's a problem for another time.
Yeah, don't think about that now.
Because Eragon's sleepy. but as we close this chapter, Brahm's in the middle of his spiel about how dangerous the night's going to be because the Razak like stalk in the darkness. They have like night vision. When something catches Eragon's eye, some movement in the trees, and then lots of head pain, and then fade to black. What's going to happen?
More head trauma. That is for sure. That's what.
Oh, God.
Yeah. That takes us to our last chapter of the week, chapter 35, the Razak's Revenge. Eragon wakes to the Razak having captured our whole gang. Erebram.
Not great. Not great.
His head is slow and full of confusion.
Yes, that's the concussion.
Yeah, and he tries to use magic, but they seem to have given him some type of drug that makes magic impossible. So,
That's bad.
That's not good.
Yeah.
As the Razak try to scare him and be creepy, Eragon sees that Saphira, this one actually bothered me, is muzzled and like restrained to the ground, and also Brahm is also restrained. And I was like, oh, we are in trouble.
Yes.
The Razak finds the Red Rider sword that Eragon has. They seem to know about it and starts like screeching about it. It's like the way it's described is creepy and excitement. Then the Razak start talking about killing Brahm with each other, which I thought he's really good. Christopher Paolini is really characterizing them really well.
Yes,
They
yeah.
seem just like bad dudes.
Yes, and like conniving. You know, we almost have personalities from them at this point.
Yeah.
They're clearly evil. They're gross. They're creepy. But now they're like, oh, should we kill him? I bet Galbatorix would want to, but we don't have to tell Gal everything. Like they're
like planning on lying to Galbatorix. So Galbatorix
which you know is the greatest crime of all. They've murdered Kara, lit fires.
Look, if you lie to your king,
they kill
where
slaves.
does it end?
But they're going to betray your main man, Galbatorix.
I'm just saying, we don't know all the facts. Oh my
But
God.
it is bad. I mean, it's weird that on top of all of this, they're
Yeah.
like conniving evil people.
Yeah, I mean, I really like it because we get a sense of them in this.
Yes.
They're talking about killing Brom. They mean to lie to Galbatorix, who wants everyone alive. And after they decide to kill Brom, they threaten Eragon not to tell Gal. They're like, snitches get stitches, Eragon.
Yeah.
They're about to kill Brom. They got like a dagger out. His neck is pulled back.
Oh.
And then an unknown rescuer fires an arrow to chase the Razek away. It seems like there might be multiple rescuers as arrows come from like different sides.
Yes.
The Razek must make a retreat. And as they leave, one of the Razek turns around and throws a dagger at Eragon.
Crazy.
It seems like all is lost, and this happens like in slow-mo, except they forgot about Brom, the storyteller, who
Yes.
was bound and beaten. He jumps up and dives in front of Eragon. Such a badass move. Takes the dagger meant for Eragon and immediately passes out. Eragon screams,
Brom.
also passes out. These two really need to seek medical attention. I'm pretty sure Eragon has brain damage.
Yes.
And poor Brom, he's the goat.
I know. Literally taking a bullet for his guy.
This is where Gal has crossed the line for me.
If now
Brom is hurt, I
finally.
love Brom. If Brom's hurt, like he might be misguided in his terrorist, ways. But if Brom ends up, his henchmen kill Brom, if Galbatorix kills Brom, I'd be bummed.
Well, I'm glad you're a man with boundaries, Dane. That's all I can
Where I
say
draw the line.
about that. I'm glad there's a line. It is way too far into the weeds for my taste, but at least it's there. I think right now our concussion count is up to 2 or
I think it's 3. Yeah.
We'll go with 3, head trauma. And I'm not a doctor, but I think the evidence so far is pretty conclusive that is not good for a growing boy's brain.
Yeah, it's definitely concussive. I mean,
Yes.
conclusive. Oh my God, we can cut that. We gotta
No,
cut that.
I loved it.
Oh God.
Straight up. Good pun. And your puns are usually bad. I loved it.
It's time for analysis.
Now, on top of all the head wounds, I do want to take a minute to talk about some of the other ways the idea of paying a price or, consequences is a running theme through this section.
Yes.
So hot out of the gate, in our first big action sequence back on the road, Eragon's overreach with magic nearly kills everybody.
Yes.
It's a big problem. He's paying the price not only physically, being unconscious for 2 whole days, but you also see in Brom and Saphira's reactions that Eragon has really shaken their trust in his abilities, like their confidence in him. And that is a huge price to pay in this like heightened situation.
Brom seems like legitimately disappointed.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man.
For real.
What are we doing?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that seems to take a huge toll on their morale while they travel, which is quite the feat because normally Saphira would be stoked she got to do so much murder. Like Eragon must really have fucked up to make her sad after how many Urgles she killed.
Saphira's like, you're ruining our fun murder trip.
Yes,
what are you
murder
doing?
Spree. It's so rude. But on top of all of that, Eragon's mistake with his spell means that definitive information about Erebrom and Saphira is about to make its way back to the Shade, Galbatorix, somebody who the Urgles serve, and that is not great. Definitively the worst for a day's work, Eragon.
Yeah, I think it's just dumb. I think that the thing that it's one way we're seeing Eragon's young.
Yeah.
And these are just bad moves. And you need that in a hero, you're following in a book. But I think you're right. I think Saphira kind of is a little disheartened here. She seems a little stressed and irritated at Eragon.
Yes.
Brom is obviously irritated.
Yeah.
And I think even as a reader, it's like, come on, dude. We've all learned.
Yes, but I think what I like is that the fallout, the consequences, this is the thing that is going to push him, hopefully, to learn and grow. I mean, we haven't seen it yet, but
I hope.
We can dream.
Yeah.
But all the consequences we see in this section actually aren't necessarily bad because Eragon broke his wrist fleeing the Urgles. He's forced to train with his offhand, which leads him to become a bona fide blade master. So that's a consequence of some actions of his that is something positive. And the writing in the scene where he finally overpowers Brom with his left hand is really epic in scale.
Yeah.
Like, it's sweeping language and it's written like very old world epic. I like that Christopher Paolini like definitely seems to be into this idea of taking something that might be a setback and turning it into a positive consequence of that situation. So he's kind of seeding the ground, hopefully, that like Eragon's going to be able to learn from some of this stuff as far as consequences
Turn lemons
go.
into lemonade type situation.
A little bit, yeah. And here's some of my just textbook, classic, signature, hard-hitting literary analysis for you, Dane. Are you ready?
Hit me with this.
This section gives us the best example of paying a price that I know of that exists, the biggest consequence. Our first hangover.
The one we've all been forced to deal with.
I mean, I'm certainly not immune. But I mean, I think it is just like very on the nose, obviously,
Yes.
a clear consequence. And that leads us to the next few days in Drosleona. We stumble into the slave auction, which is really a point here where Eragon's hatred of Galbatorix is crystallizing. Like, this is a big consequence for the world in general, not just for our characters.
I think it's something he can point to and be like, I am against this.
Yes, this is obviously bad.
This one I know is bad. There's no like discussion here.
Yes,
This
and
is evil.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
another place where like the writing really shines, because the way like we see Eragon's rage from his internal monologue, the way the slavers are described, the way they're written, they're irredeemably
Yeah.
gross, ugly, evil people. And there's just no bones about it for
Yes.
obviously for Christopher Paolini, for Eragon, for the readers, like
For us, we
Yes.
all don't like it.
yes. Christopher Paolini is clearly taking a stance about slavery along with
Yeah.
Eragon, and it feels like this is something that is going to come up later. They make a really big point about it, and it's like we're probably not done with this topic here, but we know from the jump, like, we need to understand it's irredeemable.
Yeah.
It's obviously an opinion or a thing that most people recognize
Well, I
about
think-
slavery is that it's bad, but I think it's something we talk about a lot. It comes up in a lot of fantasy literature, and it's not always treated as just bad. Sometimes there's like should we explore slavery in fantasy books? And
Yeah.
I hate that.
I think the most
So-
notable one to bring up right now is Wheel of Time.
Yes.
I think the biggest gripe with that is that, like, I think Robert Jordan writes slavery as bad. I think he expresses its badness. The thing that I think most people are waiting for in that series that never happens, and obviously, like, Robert Jordan died, but Brandon Sanderson doesn't fix this either, is that the Shan-Chan are, like, slavery is never outlawed outright, and it's never, like, they're never punished.
I was just going to say,
There's
they
no, like,
never pay the
retribution.
consequences for that action. And
Yes.
here we're seeing...
Spoiler alert if you're going to read Wheel of Time, by the way.
Well, and I think he goes out of his way to write some likable characters who are
Slavers.
reprehensible slavers.
Yes.
And that is not something I enjoy to read.
Not
So-
many people like that. Yeah.
Yes. So I think it comes up here. It has consequences in the way Eragon sets his will against Galbatorix because of this.
Yes.
And just all the descriptions of the slavery scene are very evocative to
I
let
mean-
you know, like, this is not a thing we're going to be going into.
Right.
In the sense that, like, we want to explore what its implications are. This
Yeah.
is like it's bad, and it's
Full
going to
stop.
have consequences
Yes.
because of how bad it is.
I would say even I am starting to be like, maybe something's a little up here.
Yes. I'm glad that you're finally
Slavery is bad. I don't like this.
starting to ask some questions.
But maybe
Dane.
that's why Gal's coming to visit Marcus Tabor. Maybe he's going to be like, hey, I heard about the slavery
to
thing.
put the kibosh on it.
I'm just saying we don't have all the facts.
Oh, I'm gonna let you keep thinking that. We'll see what happens. But of course, the climax moment of this section too, I think, kind of ties back into that theme of paying a price. The chase with the Razak is a direct result of Eragon being drawn in and falling for their tricks. He gets lured into the cathedral as they try to escape the city. Brom overtaxes his strength, and pays the price for that as well, because he's exhausted by that magical effort.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes, like, that's part of what makes their flight into the wilderness so hurried, so sloppy, to the point that the Razak are so easily able to find them. It's all these consequences, like, built up and built up and built up in one long chase sequence. I feel like the way it's, just a steady shot with the camera, if
Yeah.
you will, like, just builds, compounds consequence on top of consequence on top of consequence, and it all culminates in Brom taking that dagger.
Yes.
And that obviously is we'll see, but so far, having our mentor even injured is the biggest price anyone's paid in this book so far, except for Garrow.
Yeah, it feels like there's real stakes at this point.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
I'm worried after this section. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. And in a way, my reread of this section, I think feels like Christopher Paolini's highlighting the way that the stakes do get higher as you pay prices and face consequences for your actions as you come of age. Like as you're learning things and taking risks, this is a very real thing that happens. If you remember, Christopher Paolini started writing this book when he was like around 14, 15, but he didn't finish until he was closer to 18 when it was published.
Gotcha.
And I'm definitely feeling like that span of years in a really specific way here, like where at the beginning of that time period, you'd just be trying things, but you maybe still have a lot of safety net. But the end of that span of ages is where like people expect you to know what you're doing in a way. And like, you're going to start paying the price. I remember in my own life, like being responsible in some real ways for my choices around that time. And like, it's fucking scary.
Yeah. As soon as you get out of that like teen area, people start to care what you're doing.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
So to me, that's always been one of the strengths of these books is like putting you right back where you were, the way you felt, like really understanding Eragon through that lens, because you're like, oh shit, yeah, I was also an idiot.
Yeah.
once.
He also has a lot of power. I think there's also this, he's doing both, because we talked about this last week. There's this like, with all the power Eragon has, he has a larger responsibility.
Yes.
Because he has to, at the very least, make judgments about how he's going to use that power, right? And then you're adding this teen element of like, as he's growing up and realizing there's expectations about growing up.
Yeah.
You know, that people have around you. Brahm and Saphira clearly do, right?
Yeah.
That is a great analysis. We're going to do a quick deep dive. My deep dive is really short this week.
Yes.
So for this deep dive, I just want to briefly go over the government system. We're getting a greater picture of it. It doesn't seem like the Empire, like we don't get a lot of information. So I'm just trying to put what we do has. It does seem like the Empire is a very classic absolute monarchy.
Okay.
In the last episode, we found out that Tyrion is run by a lord, which doesn't really tell us how high up that lord is on the food chain. Like there's like, you could be a lord and be called like a duke or something, or a baron, or like you could be a various types of lords.
Like he's in charge of Tyrion, but we don't know really where he is on the hierarchy
of the government.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
But we did get like references around the city that told us he was in charge of the merchant class and city guards in Tyrion. So he's got to be like a higher level noble or of some sort.
Okay.
And in this section, we get a sense about Dras Leona as it's run by a duke. So a duke is usually the top of the lord food chain.
Okay.
The only thing above it is normally a king.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, or like then it's king, and then it could be a high king. Galbator's is supposed to be an emperor. I don't really understand how this is an empire.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of is maybe these are city-states. But that doesn't seem right either with what we're seeing. I really don't know if we know now. It's hard to say right now. I am getting the impression that Galbatorix is a bit hands-off, which tells us something about his influence and everything we know about him. We haven't heard about any other rulers so far in this story. And that tells us that maybe his shadow runs large, so to speak.
Okay.
I'm guessing...
Like the most you could be in charge of is a city.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like, or like there's no like factions within the government, it sounds, that are against Galbatorix, or like a lord that's like, you know, antithetical to Galbatorix.
Or even like a house of lords. The most we've heard about, right, is like a court of nobles.
We know there's a court in Urobane.
Yes.
But that backs up everything we're talking about.
Exactly. A court usually implies like more of a social body rather than political, right?
Yeah, it's basically where all the lords within like the capital would go to like be on the hot goss. Yeah. Well, it'd be like a political meet, kind of like it's not a senate, but it's like where those decisions would get made. You know what I mean? So I'm going to assume that because has a dragon and is a murder wizard, I'm going to assume that people fear him greatly.
Okay.
And that like
I think
the dukes or lords don't want to piss him off regularly.
Okay.
Because I think that's why we don't hear much dissent. Like we haven't heard about like any factions again that are against him.
Okay.
So Marcus de Boer here in Dras Leona must have really fucked up if Gal's coming to meet him.
That's true.
You know, maybe it's the slavery thing. Who knows? Also, we learned that slavery in sections of the Empire, which is a total yuck.
Yes.
I think this gives great insight into the morals and the class system in the world.
Okay.
Whenever there is slavery, I always take that as the author signaling that the leader of the said government is morally corrupt. So,
yeah.
You know, interesting though. I wonder if this is the whole of Alagasia, we don't have a comparison yet.
Yes.
So for instance, like, do the Varden have slaves? Do the dwarves have slaves?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Do the elves have? Is this just Gal's government? Because that would be an even more.
Yes, like a stark.
Yes, like that's the
right
bad
and
guy,
wrong.
right?
Kind of gets back at our like black and white morality
And Wheel of Time.
Yes.
Right. It's hard to tell who the good guys are if everybody's like, well,
slavery's
okay.
Yeah, maybe the Shan-Chan have slaves, but the trains run on time is kind of Robert Jordan's thing, and
his
you're
whole
like,
thing, yeah.
ick.
Yeah, but the trains. Yeah. Anyway, so just a short one today, Jax. We have a classic king with divine right, an ancient magical being with a dragon. I think that gives him the divine right, an absolute rule. Seems like he uses fear, and it seems like that works well for him. When he's not using his boogeyman Razak or scares the poop out of people, I would assume he makes visits.
Okay.
Gal's country is a place where there are people that have less or no rights or have no contact or protection, as we've seen in Carvajal and in Yazawak. So we're getting an idea of how this government works. It does not seem like the government's working well. It doesn't seem like the government represents many people.
No, we keep getting all these drips and drabs, all these drops of like chaos engulfing the empire.
Yes.
With Galbatorix being, an absolute head of the government who is not involved in anything that would be helpful to the actual everyday people. And that's kind of I think I do like this information all together because I think it's important to understand the environment that Eragon and Brahm have to travel through, have to put up with to fight people, have to be secretive around, and maybe ultimately what they're going to have to escape and fight against.
Yeah, it's looking more and more that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all we have. I would go into more if we had more. We just don't have any more.
Actually, you should do your research, huh? Have you even read it? How you pronounce it?
What are the haters saying?
There's an index in the back, right?
This is overly derivative.
So for what do the haters say today? Let's talk about what some people hate.
What are the haters saying?
Yeah, what are the haters saying? The haters are chattering loud this week, and there's actually a lot to cover here, so I'm going to get into it and just dive right in.
Yes.
We're going to focus on the information that Brahm shares with Eragon in this section of chapters. Specifically, two pieces are the problem here. Let's start with the first bit of information that we get that I think is a little bit more interesting in the mater. I think that haters might have a little bit of a point here, if just a little one. I mean, this is the first time I think in the series that I'm like, okay, I kind of get this.
Okay.
That is the Razak questions Sloan for the dragon egg. Okay, so we learn that the Razak, in fact, were not there for the dragon egg at all, Brahm thinks, but to kill Brahm after they intercepted information about his whereabouts from a possible runner that was sent by the Varden to inform Brahm about the lost dragon egg. Now, there's a few problems with the story. The first is the most obvious. How does Brahm know this? So let's assume he's plugged into the Varden and that at one point maybe he was a high-ranking official or something inside of it. He has been in Carvajal and disconnected from the world for 15 years.
Yeah.
He's a little out of the loop. And I don't know.
That's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I don't know how he has this information or even can make a guess. It's a little suspect. But let's say he's right? If Brahm is right, the second thing here is for some reason the Varden did send him a runner that got picked up by Galbatorix and company. The next question is, why did they use a runner in the first place? We have read hundreds of pages, right?
Yeah.
We know Brahm is a motherfucking wizard.
Yes, yeah.
And he is good with his mind magic. Why didn't the Varden contact him with magic? Brahm can speak with his mind and knows how to scry.
Yes.
Does the Varden not have someone like that in their organization?
I guess, we know that magic use is very, very rare, but that's an alarming level of rarity if that's true.
Yes, it's inefficient. It also makes this rebellion, this terrorist organization, really sound lacking in resources. And
everybody knows terrorists are famously well provisioned, Dane.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's why I think it works, right? But if using magic wasn't possible at that point, I guess the Varden are supposed to sound like they're lacking. I think you're right, Third here in this first point is that the story that Brahm tells Eragon about the Razak doesn't make any sense. So why doesn't the Razak just kill Brahm? So stay with me here. Let me break this down. The Razak aren't exactly low-profile people. They must be aware that they give people the creeps. And as a reader, we know Brahm was hunted by the Razak and Morzan while he and Jode looked for the thief who had Saphira's egg. So the Razak must know what Brahm looks like.
Yes.
Also, we know that Brahm hasn't aged since that time, as Jode remarks upon that when we first meet him.
That's right.
So knowing these three things, the Razak know, they stand out. They know who they need to kill along with what he looks like and how powerful he is. And they know the village he's living in. Why don't they just go to the village, ask for Brom's house, wait until nighttime, come back and kill him while he sleeps? Why talk to Sloan at all? Why talk to anybody about the egg? It just seems a little off. Even if all the pieces make sense, it just still feels a little like there's a lot of pieces there. A lot of things have to go right for that to make sense.
Yes, I guess I could see, like, on an outside chance, the Razak find out about the egg. They're going, or they find out about Brom.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Brom's
saying.
location.
I guess it comes down to the note. Like, whatever they intercepted, I must have to be in a cipher. I mean, they're not just like, hey, Brom, found the egg, right?
I mean, of course, but however it is, they broke the code, found out about it, tortured the runner, whatever the case may be. If they find out, they know the eggs disappeared.
Right.
And they presumably know Brom's location, or that the runner was headed to Carvajal for him. They know what he looks like, but I could see where maybe they think there's an outside chance that he's been the recipient of the egg. You know what I mean? Or like he knows where it is, so they cannot kill him until they get the information about it. And
so this is my question then.
Yeah.
Why tip Brom off at all? Why even risk it?
Well,
again, why not go to Brom first to get that information?
Well, I think because he's famously a formidable guy. Like, maybe they think it would be
Then you don't want him to know that you're looking for him. You don't want a villager to go like, hey, Brom, weird guys showed up today asking about you.
No, I totally
wouldn't
agree.
want to risk
I'm not
that.
saying they're good at it, but I could see how they could be intimidated by Brom. He killed Morzan. Like, they're going to be like, oh, he's not going to give up shit himself. So we better start asking like peons.
Even that to me sounds like a tenuous defense. I get what you're saying. I agree that makes sense.
There's a possibility where I kind of understand how this could have happened. And like, I totally understand how the Razak could have no idea, the way other people perceive them. We've all got blind spots, Dane.
Oh my gosh.
I think most people,
think
I'm a really nice lady, but I definitely meet some people who understand I have a grating and intense personality.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've always seen you as an easygoing person.
That's me, famously type B, easygoing. But yeah, I guess like there's a world for me where I can conceive of how all this works.
This is what I'm saying. It's not like it doesn't make sense. It just seems far-fetched. It all seems, I mean, in a world of dragons, that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But like, I'm just saying, I do understand. What you want to be in a fantasy novel is be immersed enough that you've accepted the magical qualities. Nothing else takes you out of it, right?
Yes.
So that your immersion stops. I can see why some people are like, okay, this doesn't make sense to me. The second piece of information here that is a less matter of hating on the facts, but more about how Brom is explaining the complicated situation in this section, but with the Varden and the Empire in a way that like, I think it's overly simplistic and borderline probably not true.
Yes.
Because it just doesn't factually make sense with what we know. Brom says that the Varden and the Empire are fighting a war over the next dragon rider, which would be Eragon. And I just don't think that's true. I don't think it can be true. Because like first it seems like the Varden and the Empire have been at war for at least 100 years.
Yeah.
That's way before Eragon was born or Saphira has been hatched. And like they stole the egg 20 years ago.
Yes.
So it isn't him or Saphira specifically that this war is being fought over. Second, it can't even be the riders. Look, Gal is the only rider. He killed everyone else. Okay. So the Varden don't want him ruling, which leaves the 3 eggs. If Gal wanted riders, if he was actively, he wanted to have more riders, why wouldn't he like go Hunger Games on this?
Oh no.
And like make it a holiday and like every section has to come out and touch the egg. And you can get like a
Hunger Games, but with less death? You mean? Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, like a fun little like, hey, touch the egg, see if it hatches for
Not
you.
like, hey, murder each other and the strongest among you can touch the egg.
Well, I mean, I don't want to give like Galbadorix any ideas, but that's like if you want to raise up strong riders, make them fight to the death.
Yes?
Yeah.
That's your advice.
You heard it here first. You want strong kids, make them fight to the death. Have multiple kids, have them duke it out the Dragon Rider way.
I hope you stick with an only child, Dane.
I'm just kidding. Oh, okay. That threw me off. So why hasn't he done that?
Yeah.
He hasn't done anything like that. Third, it seems from all the context clues that we have so far, the Varden doesn't like, I think like the tyrannical and evil rule of Galbatorix. It's been framed that way this entire
weird that
book.
they don't like that.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. This might all be a misunderstanding. Like, he uses Razak, allows slavery in the Empire, doesn't protect all of his people from Urgles, killed the old riders and their dragons, and just generally seems to be kind of a bad guy the way he's been described with this propaganda. And this war is about that.
Yes.
That's what the Varden are fighting.
Yeah.
Even if Dragon were to side with the Varden today, I don't think he could win the war for them. He's a brand new dragon rider.
That's true.
He's a teenager who couldn't read until last week. And Gal killed the entire order of ancient dragon riders with just 13 bandmates.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a problem.
So that's not about Eragon and being a rider either. So this war seems to be about pushing out the evil of the land and punishing the evil guy who ruined the utopia because he wanted a second dragon. I'm not like, I just think like, why not explain it that way?
Yes.
Why try to make it, because it makes it more real.
Yes.
And it gives the motivation for Eragon, like, to clearly have a decision around joining this war that is external to himself.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I mean, of all the things we've talked about, for me, that's kind of one of the only things the haters have said that I can kind of get behind. It's one of the better points here. The best I can do, I think, is like for Brom to explain it in this way. Maybe Christopher Paolini is going for like juxtaposing Brom's oversimplification against what all those things you explained that we know to be true from the other information we have in the rest of the book. So maybe he's trying to say something about how Brom's trying to frame this, maybe trying to tell us something about Brom in that sense. But I think what we're really talking about here essentially is weak plotting. I mean, this could be a cheap defense, but I always come back to like comparisons of this book to other beloved fantasy I've read. Like, I think that's fair enough. Like, people really give this book shit and not other books occasionally. Yeah. And if we haven't established it enough, I am a huge Harry Potter fan. Dane. Might be news to you.
Are you going with the Harry Potter defense right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm always going with the Harry Potter defense, but I can't help but think there are some major like red flag level plot holes in that series. Like, hello, time turners. Yes, of course. And those don't really detract from how much I still enjoy the story overall and the world and the characters.
No.
I feel the same way about Eragon. Like, this is a point for sure.
Yeah.
I think maybe less the Razak thing for me, at least, the egg and all of that. But this about the way Brom's framing the war makes a little sense to me, but it's really not taking away from.
Well, as always, right? I myself don't hate this. I just think I do kind of get it. I'm like, I guess that makes sense. I don't think it ruins. You're right. I don't think it ruins the story at all. I don't honestly think that any of this really changes anything at all either. Right. So I don't know. The only thing else I can I'll end what the haters end on, and I'm only going to say this in a sentence because we've kind of already talked about this. Eragon is an expert swordsman with both of his hands and can outfight the guy who beat Morzan.
There's a joke in there somewhere.
Yep. Well, I was going to say, maybe he's had some practice with his sword with his left hand all along.
Gross.
You know? No, but I think they complain about that. But we've already talked about that.
Yeah.
This is necessary. This is normal. You know, Luke Skywalker was great at fighting in a movie. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not worried about it. That's how these things go. But
I'm like, could the literal child who wrote these books have like plotted it a little more tightly? Sure. But also some like fully grown adults, J.K. Rowling, who plot out their books, don't do any better.
Or like Patrick Rutherfus, don't finish their books.
Hey,
never finish.
Please don't say he's not going to finish.
I'm just going to say
I have a lot writing on that, Dane.
Yeah, well, I have a fear.
I know.
And I'm not a wise man. And it's that's not going to get finished. And if you're a deep cuts nerd, that was a joke for you. I love these chapters, though. I think they're exciting. We left on a cliffhanger this week. I'm feeling like pumped. This is the end of the revenge plot, maybe. Are we killing Razak? Are we not killing Razak? What's going to happen?
You can't wait. I think I really felt that too. It seems like the action and intrigue are like only ramping ever upwards at this point, including our mysterious stranger we get to find about next time. And even looking back on like all the training, the lack of curiosity, fucking Kevin, it all feels like it was and is still going somewhere. So I can forgive some like foibles in the writing.
I totally agree with that. I will say I did have some trouble, as I've mentioned, with some of the choices that Christopher Paolini made here
Yeah.
for explaining things, but that didn't pull me out of reading.
Yeah.
You know, only just on this reflection, I was like, oh, I can see what they're saying.
Okay.
I like to remind myself that he was young. This is the first book, and frankly, your Harry Potter defense is good.
My Harry Potter defense is always good, Dane.
It's a good defense. I enjoy the world and the magic system here, so it isn't close enough to make me stop reading or ruin my enjoyment. I can see some of the detractors' point here, but frankly, I love this book so much.
Yes.
And I just cannot stop.
Can't
These are
stop,
all minor
won't stop.
issues. So I'm just like, what's gonna happen?
Yes.
You know?
Gotta find out.
Well, we're having a long one this episode, so thank you for listening. We really appreciate all the support we've received.
yes. Thanks, Mom, our first follower on Instagram. That's real.
Hey, my wife loves this show. All right.
True.
And thank you for going on this adventure with us. That's all this episode. Make sure to rate and review, especially on Apple Podcasts. Check us out on YouTube and check out our social media at Is This Just Fantasy Pod on TikTok or at Just Fantasy Pod on Insta and Twitter.
That's us. If you want to keep pace and read along with us, on the next episode, we're going to be covering chapter 36, Murtagh.
Oh, sounds like a good name for Mysterious Stranger.
You're going to have to wait, Dane, and find out. There's no way for you to know
I
at
wanna
this
know now.
current juncture. We're going to read chapter 36, like I said, through chapter 41, Fighting Shadows.
Oh, Kevin's in the dark.
Kevin's always in the dark. I mean, to be honest, not our Kevin. Our Kevin's an
We're
angel.
just two nerds and we love our fantasy. Come on and listen to us next time. Find out what our deep dive will be. Thanks for catching our show.